Good morning, sir, and welcome.
Good morning.
Shailenra sir is the Joint Secretary with the Government of India Ministry of Finance. Sir, we have Anil Taneja ji with us from PhD Chamber of Commerce.
Shailenra ji.
Baharul Islam from IM. Anyway, we formally start the program. Good morning and welcome everyone. I would request the Honorable Chairman of the Department, Professor Nawab Ali Khan, to formally welcome the panelists. Yes, Professor Nawab Ali Khan sir.
Good morning to all the experts today and all the attendees. I feel it a great privilege to welcome you to this forum. Today, in fact, we have a galaxy of experts, in fact, and it is going to make our event more memorable, in fact. So let me briefly introduce our guest today. Mr. Anil Taneja is here with us. He is currently engaged as a regional director with the Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Let me tell you, he is a management professional who has worked groups like ICD, IGFC, and the Alliance. He has an exposure in marketing and market communications for more than decades, serving PT Chamber since 2010, big time. He is also a founder president of Vedic International Promoter Society with the mission to propounding Indian Vedic ethos. I will seek his, guidance in regard today also, because I believe in all this. I believe in Vedas a lot. Looking forward some points to face the present as the light of the Vedas. The expert today with us is Baharul Islam, who is the development communication specialist, teaching and researching in the areas of development impact, policy, and CSR issues. At present, Professor Islam is a professor and dean academics at Indian Institute of Management, Kashipur. He is also the chair of the Center for Public Policy and Government at the Institute. He's a big shot, in fact. And our great expert today is Dr. Shailenra Kumar ji, जिनके लिए मैं ये कहूँगा कि नाम ही काफी है. So he is the Joint Secretary, Department of Investment and Public Asset Management, Government of India. With these words, I welcome you all, sir, today's webinar, and I request Professor Imran to initiate the process.
Well, I welcome you all once again on behalf of the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Tariq Mansoor, all the panelists. And this is perhaps the dream panel that I aspired for, an industry person, Mr. Anil, then the government person, the executor, Shailenra sir, and then we have our very own academic giant, Professor Bahar. So I would just like to initiate the discussion with an issue raised about the state of industry and economy. And I would like to seek comment from, especially from Anil ji, that how do you see how the industry is delivering and what are the prospects in near future? Because this is the unprecedented event when the industry has come to a total halt. And I mean, the history has not experienced it ever before. And the future might be very tricky. So I would request the panelists to please initiate.
Thank you, Salim sir, and thanks Nawab sir to bring me on to the board for this discussion. Industry, as all of you know, is in ICU as of now, and we did a very small survey where we asked industry what is the sustainability period that they see, how long they can continue with this. So most of the people responded that maximum 2 to 3 months time. It was focused on MSME basically. So 2 to 3 times lockdown is a big jolt to the industry. After that, it becomes, they need ventilator anyways. And I think government is also very much aware. Shailenra ji might be, knowing how the industry is, submitting its representations to the government and what all representations are there. And definitely, government is looking to be pro requirements of the industry and steps which we foresee from the government are, very much there, hopefully there, taking place. The most important part of the strategic thinking that government should have is to partner with the industry as well. Ownership of the government should come to the industry. In the state of Uttarakhand, for example, I see more closely the industry scenario over here. We had made representation to the government, so many representations, but till now in the state of Uttarakhand, nothing much had been thought about. Very, uh, with the ownership of the industry. I hope that doesn't happen in the state center level. The most important part, of the most vulnerable is MSME. Already, we have, GDP is going to be down by 3% as stated by the IMF, global GDP. And India is still in a better position compared to rest of the 195 countries that we talk about, which are affected with COVID epidemic, emergency. We are still better off. We have, because we're not dependent on exports much. That is a blessing in disguise, I would say. And we have untapped market in domestic market itself. For example, if we look at certain sectors which are most affected, like auto industry, tourism, which becomes part of the service industry, aviation is 2.4% of GDP in tourism, and only 3% of aviation industry is depending upon domestic market. This is a very catchy point for the government to take up. The domestic market need to be catered. Liquidity in the hands of consumers need to be given. MSME need to be given more, breathing space so that they can survive. Of course, the viable MSMEs. And this is a good time for the government also to see to it that whatever soaps, whatever relief packages government thinks of, it should fall into the right hands. This is a good time to do the pruning, because banks already were in bad shape. NPAs was a big issue, and this time we gather so much of money. We are already very not very rich economy. Somehow government will gather money and bring out with the relief package for the industry. It is very important for the government to see to it that the sustainability is there for that package. It is imperative that the government has to spend on the basic necessities of the poor people, the rural market, but that will not be sustainable spending. So it should be limited, very limited. If we spend money in a way that those poor people are back to the work, that would be a much better scenario. And for that matter, there are certain sectors like infrastructure. There is infrastructure fund of 102 crores, I think, which is earmarked for infrastructure development. It should be taken on a fast track basis by the government, so that engagement of the workers is more not dependent on private sector, mostly on the this infrastructure development will bring in more and more employment into the picture if we do it on the fast track basis. Similarly, agri-based industry, which is again 17 to 18% contribution to GDP. There also 60% of our employment is in agri-based industry, agriculture and food processing industry. That is another focus area we look forward government to be more active, and there are certain gaps, certain holes which need to be plugged in. This is a very good opportunity post-COVID to fill those gaps in the value chain of the agriculture-based industry, The biggest is ground level farmers, stake which is there in the value chain. That has to be taken care really. It's not much which need to be done. When we talk about the value chain from starting from the sand to the the plate where the food is served, farmers are distressed. Even today they are distressed. Even though the government has got tremendous, very big, good schemes for the farmers, still they are distressed. The reason is only the gaps, the holes which are there, and these holes are not very difficult to be plugged in. And this is a very good opportunity for these holes to be plugged in, because these holes, if plugged in, for example, food processing ministry has schemes where farmers are given everything. They need not spend a single paisa for making, for cultivation purposes, provided they are in a structured, clustered value chain development process. In isolation, any farmer cannot be helped as per with the schemes of the government. So it's an opportunity for government to ensure that youth, the people who have migrated back into the rural areas, they are engaged with the farmers to enable them to build their capacity to come, become farmer producer company, part of the farmer producer companies, the structured groups, so that the resources of the government can be channelized. This will help not only the farmers but also the youth which is getting unemployed today. And in Uttarakhand, again, I will give an example that there was an issue with Uttarakhand of migration. Today, more than 3 lakh workers from across the nation have reported back to Uttarakhand. This is again a blessing in disguise. So now it becomes the responsibility of the government. This reverse migration that has taken place, take it to be taken as an opportunity, and align the resources of the government in such a way that these holes in the value chain of the agri sector are filled in, plugged in. So this is, sector by sector we can talk about. I think agriculture sector is most important. Auto sector is again in ICU. It started, before COVID itself, they were in bad shape. And then supply chain development that need to be taken place, because with the closing down of the borders, the COVID emergency, there is a lot of disruption in the supply chain. So this is again opportunity to be offered to our industry, where new supply chain is created by the government, is facilitated by the government. So I think these are the opportunities that we see in a new era after COVID, because this COVID lockdown is not limited to limited to this 2-3 periods of time. Lockdown period, this COVID is not limited to that. COVID is going to exist for at least a year to 2 years time. So the vaccine is, we are lucky enough to have a vaccine which doctors say, medical experts say that it will take at least 1.5 to 2 years time to be developed. So new lifestyles, new working styles, new opportunities which we need to grab. And in the government should be proactive to support the industry to grab the opportunities. One example I would also like to give before closing for the time being, tourism sector, for example. In tourism sector, most of the governments, state governments, focus on direct tourism, rentals from the hotels, the transport, exchequer focuses on earning revenues from the direct tourism. We need to shift our strategy. If we talk about the revenue sources from direct tourism, there will be a list of 7 to 8 sources. If we talk about sources of revenue from indirect tourism. There will be a list of more than 35 heads of revenue which can be taken up. Switzerland, for example, the direct tourism contribution of Switzerland economy is to the tune of 4.5 to 5%. Indirect tourism contributes to the tune of 7 to 8%. This is what we need to do. Today, tourism sector is completely dead, and that is scenario in the coming at least two to 3 months time, and they will have to invest into making this industry more conducive, more they have to build confidence amongst tourists that in this scenario of COVID emergency, it is safe to be there in the hotels. So they will have to invest. Capital investment is required for them. Governments also are thinking on developing certain protocols for the hotel industry to be followed. So at this point of time, my appeal to the government would be that direct tourism focus of the exchequer to earn revenue from should be given away. Only indirect tourism government exchequer should focus on to earn revenues from. This is, in brief, what I have to say for the time being. I think as the further discussion goes, we will,
Sure.
I can again.
So, of course, the industry is almost in ICU. The supply chain and other things. Every economic activity is disturbed, and industry is looking at the government. Government is perhaps in somewhat way is looking back at the industry to put the things in the right perspective. But of course, the drama has to yet to unfold. So, may I request Professor Baharul Islam Sahab to make some observations, then we come to Shailendra sir.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, thank you to everybody, organizer of this program, to giving me this opportunity to interact with my alma mater and other participants who are watching this program online, joining. Now, my perspective is basically, as you know, I'm from the education field, higher education sector, and particularly we are from a business school. So we are looking at this at a very critical juncture, both as a business school and also as a higher education institution of national importance. Now, we are supposed to maintain our excellence in various areas, both research and training. But this corona virus and its impact and this whole COVID-19 scenario has created both a tremendous challenge, and at the same time we are looking at now we are almost the acceptance is there. Initially there were some denial that it will be over very soon, but now we are looking at a scenario where it will impact the whole academic year, this year at least, in terms of it has already impacted our last year, first year's training and placement, internship, etc. It is going to impact next year also. But after the acceptance in the higher education domain, as I say, across the country, across the world, right from Harvard Business School to our own institutions and universities, mainstream universities with mainstream departments like your one, commerce and others, even arts. I had this opportunity, as I was looking at what are the opportunities it has created. This summer, I attended all the literary theory classes of English department, which I attended almost 28 years back at Aligarh. Now, this in life cannot be possible. Many a time I thought I'll revisit the class, but physically it is not possible to go to Aligarh and sit in the class for hours. But this online classes allowed me again to attend my MA first year, second year classes, which were taken by, I think, Professor Asim Siddiqui, and I could do that. So these are the opportunities which are coming. Now, let us look at what are the major areas where we are looking at. Basically, we are looking at education mainstream education, degree granting education, and then we are looking at professional training. I can focus maybe M.Com is an education and maybe an engineering is a training or MBA is a training program. And then we are looking at research, high-end research. All these three areas, and in school, in a business school or even universities, nowadays we are looking at the kind of parameter of how do we place our students. So it might not be the concern for mainstream universities. Many of them, they do not have the, they don't have to worry about how their students are placed. They provide best education, then the degrees. We did our masters, and then we find ourselves our job. But in institutions like IIM and even MBA department in mainstream universities, we have an additional factor we look into is that how do we place our students, because that determines our ranking and the market standard and all those things, branding and everything. Basically, it is education and research, education training and research, and then perhaps plus. In these four areas, placement in these four areas, this will have an impact. Now, if you say education, as I have just given an example how I could attend the MA English classes of Aligarh, this is a new paradigm shift. In fact, this paradigm shift was pushed by open and massive open access courses online. And this has been a debate. We remember early 80s when we started about, IGNOU was on the horizon and one or two state open universities started, national open schools started. At that time also, we kind of a second rate of branding was given. Now, it has been now 3-4 decades and we have accepted our online education programs. But again, there is a kind of, you can say, dichotomy in this. On one side, the government says that we cannot provide higher education to everybody in the physical platform, and people are working, so they need lifelong learning. So they must have an opportunity like open universities and do that. But still, the main face-to-face education, physical campus education was the kind of, you can say, focus for everybody. This, in one push, this is an opportunity that has created that the whole higher education system has been put into kind of, I can say, a leapfrog. It has jumped into the next stage. Suddenly, all the classes, the teachers who were hesitant, even for last 2-3 years, the government of India is asking us to provide all the classrooms on SWAYAM portal so that an IIM or an IIT professor taking a class, it can be available to any local degree colleges, whoever can access SWAYAM portal. But most of our senior teachers or us, for example, we have not produced any. IIM Bangalore has produced some. They are not very comfortable with the camera, following them. Nowadays, this camera, because the teacher moves within the classroom and they said it cannot be fixed, I cannot be. So now we have, photo sensor attached to the camera so the teacher can move inside the classroom and still the camera will follow him and it will record. But people were not very ready with that. Whenever we talk about, for example, PhD interview, many of our scholars completed their work, their external report has come, but just because one expert from somewhere in the country is not coming for last 3 months and extending the dates, a person is not getting his PhD degree. And whenever we say that, why should I bring an expert for an 1 hour viva? Why not bring in the Skype? Suddenly our academic colleague become very jittery and say, no, this is not, don't dilute the PhD viva. This is a kind of ceremonial. This is a very, very thing. All kind of Panditya talks. Now in one go, within 1 month, I see all the PhD viva happening online. Now the degree has not diluted. So I think this is an opportunity which has created. We have spent much more money in paying TADA to expert and waiting for them for 3 months and then giving a degree rather than concentrating on what the scholar has done. If he has done a good work, he will be watched over. His PhD viva will be online and many people can watch rather than 20-30 people who appear in a PhD viva in our case. So this is, I'm taking a just particular example. Similarly with the class. After we have said the class has happened, the second thing in the pedagogy which we are talking in terms of is examination, evaluation. How do we evaluate them? Again, those kind of traditional problems were happening. because some the students left, and then they say that how they will be monitored. Now, monitoring was an issue because even monitoring them, invigilation is a big issue. Even in a professional college, we have to assign those proctorial, methods within the classroom so that these things are everybody is fair and they are on an even playing field. But again, with the kind of what we realized is that it is a change in pedagogy. You have to make a question, you give a question in a way that even he has his whole family sitting together, he cannot write the answer if he does not know what it is. Many of the people say that if you give an assignment, they will get their friends or family members writing them and sending you back. You don't get. There is always a risk when you give a take-home assignment and evaluate a student's analytical skill or knowledge skill based on that. But we have now technological, advantages where you can, he can have a single browser where he can give an exam. He cannot open another browser to do that. And again, we can have, retina sensors to what generally this our other educational programs from abroad which are certified to give. So we have now technological advantage of not only giving the exams at various times where it's supposed to, but we can also have technological advantage of monitoring them far better than physical monitoring in the classroom. We have an issue with an invigilation system this every time you have to shut down the network and all those things, but we are not looking at that. Third thing, in the research, we are having a trouble. Now, because the field work and traveling in the field has become difficult. Now, what has happened, now we are insisting that they will have, secondary source-based work, or they will have live projects where they can go, like bank is opening, so somebody can walk into a bank and interact with them. But at the level of, internship or project term paper, maybe okay, but for a PhD program, we need a lot of field work, which is hampering at this moment of time. But again, here again, we say that for a long time, our research focus has always been applied. In terms of applied, most of our research end up being a kind of corporate driven, research. In the sense that it just extends from a fundamental theory and look into an implementation of that in the ground, and then you build your thesis around it. Okay, this was a branding theory, and this did not work for Hindustan Lever, and that's a thesis. Now we are saying that because the research has that fundamental, you can say, the difficult challenge now to go into the field, we can reorient our research to basic research, theoretical research, which is difficult, qualitative, but again, this is an opportunity this COVID has created. So anybody who's writing a paper over the next 6 months at least, it cannot have so much empirical data. It has to be a very strong theoretical analytical paper based on secondary data. But again, this is an opportunity we're looking at, because we have been trying so much for last time for our research orientation, but we were not very successful because there is a pressure for our research scholar to publish in journals, and for publishing journals, they find it more easier to collect data and do statistical analysis and quantitative. Out of 10 papers published, 8 or 9 of them are quantitative. So now we have a focus where we can focus on reorient ourselves on the qualitative side. In terms of placement, difficult scenario here again, but again, we are looking at our internship being being governed by, again, like one-to-one mentorship. We are roping in our alumni who are again sitting at home, working in industry, but sitting at home right now. But they will be available for us. We are requesting them, and we had a very good response that they will guide us. For an university like AMU, You have thousands of alumni across the country or across the world, and they can really provide. And at this point of time, if a working executive who is a vice president moving around does not have time to provide. Now, fortunately, he is stuck at home, and he can take one or two students to give guidance in internship. So in that way we're looking at. And the final placement, again, we are looking at an overall impact on that. It will go down, and that's why we are now focusing in, at least in the next year, our focus will be on entrepreneurship, so that students are aware who will be joining session this year 2021. They'll be very well aware that the offers will be coming much less, placement will be much more difficult, and therefore they have to find out an alternative way of looking at things. I'm also looking here at that, for example, we don't find many of our students joining academics. Ultimately, when we need a faculty, we look forward to Ahmedabad PhD, or somebody is coming from places like AMU, JNU, and Jadavpur. But maybe this time we'll find people thinking about long-term research to continue forward their MBA education to good management research. So this is how we see that each of the difficulties which you have faced in March onward scenario, by April, end of April, we are now looking forward that each of them can be converted into some kind of opportunities. And how do we do our higher without diluting the standards we have been talking about and the rigor of education we have been talking about all along. I think this is a new, you can say, era of delivering education in this country. Unfortunately, this is I can call it a blessing in disguise, because many of these things were being pushed by government but never happened. But in one go, it has happened in 2 months, and that's where I'm looking at a silver lining on the horizon.
Sir, in PhD chamber also, we never thought of doing webinars at the scale of 100, 200 people together. And this has become very frequent now. It has become really very frequent. And I have, I have taken the opportunity last month. I have conducted even a management development program for MSME on digital MSME. So it was taken very, very well. And people are very much looking forward. They understand that the constraints that they faced with the lockdown, digitization would have helped them a lot.
Yeah.
In the absence of when the division of the capacity because of the absence of labor, absence of working hands. So they many all of the about 15 participants were there in our MDP, and all of them have decided to take an ERP for their units.
Yeah, many of the thing you see, for example, one of our the technology, resistance. Even when the ATM card came in and the State Bank or any bank started giving ATM cards to everybody, so Tauji ke saath wo ATM card was the biggest technological hurdle. And if you remember, we used to get some of the old people in the ATM booth where the beta ye mera paisa nikal dena aur ye pin bhi likha hua hai. We have converted those Taujis most digital in a year. I think in 2-3 years, everybody has converted. And now I think those initial hesitation has been all been addressed. As I was saying that my professors were not ready to record their classrooms. One, they were worried that once they're under camera, many of the things they talk and they goof up, it will be recorded. So that one fear. Second thing was that once it is recorded, it is just it becomes digitally traceable. So if any issues comes up, the students come up and say, "वो अच्छा नहीं पढ़ाया है." Now you have a digital evidence of अच्छा नहीं पढ़ाया है. So that we were fearing so much. But again, here as a dean who look into the quality of teaching, and we in IIM system we have the students are very democratic. They can come and change their teacher also. Within 8 weeks they can come with a complaint and dean will be, bound to change the faculty. Now, at this point of time, therefore, everybody has an added, you can say, responsibility to deliver goods. If you are taking a 90-minute session, you cannot do anything, you see. At one point of time, you will be, we are looking at that many of these things will actually change the way our education delivery was happening in the classroom. There has been always a dichotomy, or you can say a kind of challenge when we recruit our faculty, that in the interview we look forward how many papers published, good PhD and all these things, but by the time he joins the faculty, we now want him to be, Radhakrishnan of the college, that he teaches also very well. We cannot have both them together, but this technology has made now that you cannot only do the research, you can also have to manage your technological tools, do your evaluation online, upload the marks and all those things. Yeah.
इमरान साहब आपका ऑडियो म्यूटेड है.
I'm just suggesting that Mr. Shailenra Kumar to pitch in. Let me say a few words about him, because he is not only an administrator. I know him personally. He has a lot of academic exposure and taste as well. He is widely published in the international journals. So I would request Shailenra sir to make observations on these two aspects. One has been raised by Anil ji, that the industry is in shambles and is looking at the government for multiplicity of support systems, and we have Bahar Saab who is saying that the word has come to the fingertips, and I consider myself as the Tauji of the education sector, perhaps the eldest one in the panel. So, but I'm sure that I'm trying to pick up. So, your observations, sir, please.
Let me thank you first for organizing this wonderful webinar. And I keep saying that you are one of the most active persons on the university campus. And because of your, hyperactivity, this is happening today. So I'm very happy. And my good morning to all the panelists. I'm very happy to note that Mr. Taneja has given some very good ideas for even government to think over them, and I will discuss one by one. And as far as Professor Baharul Islam is concerned, he is giving us something which is hope, silver lining, etc. in the era of very, very dark time. Anyway, I'll start with COVID-19 because that's the major issue. See, everything depends on how long it is going to take, because still we are in lockdown and the entire world is standstill. So I don't know, nobody knows. These are very, very uncertain times. Because if May everything is over, things will be improving in June and June onwards, but nobody knows exactly. I follow worldometers, and today morning also I checked worldometers. So for the last 3 days, there is some decline in the growth of even death rate as well as new cases. So anyway, things are uncertain, but we have to think over it. We have to consider something. So we are having this seminar. I checked the internet, and I found that there are many people across the world who have already thought a lot about the implications and how to take the economy forward. And I was damn surprised to note that there is one Mr. Sitakant Mish who has published a book in this time only. The name of the book is The Post-Pandemic World Order, 9 Pointers. So what he is exactly suggesting is that the entire world economic order will be changed. And I also think that the world will not be the same what was 2 or 3 months back. There will be difference. And what will be the difference? Professor Baharul Islam has already indicated. we have to rely on these new technologies, and fortunately these technologies have improved a lot. um, I will tell you that in the government for the last 2-3 months, whatever meeting we have had with the cabinet secretary, because we had to prepare for this lockdown, all the meetings were held uh, using this internet. And initially we were hesitant, as you everybody knows, that unless you meet somebody physically, you don't feel like having attended a meeting. But now we are accustomed to it and we are doing it time and again. Now you see even your PowerPoint presentation, your talk, and what Professor Islam has narrated in very detailed manner. And most of the things can happen. But there is a flip side, and the flip side is transport sector. What Mr. Taneja has already elaborated, because your flights, your trains, your buses. Yesterday I was watching a small video of Pakistan, where one fellow was saying that if you take a bus from one city to another city, and if that is costing 500 rupees, in order to maintain social distancing, I will charge you 1,000 rupees, because I will take half of the passengers, not the full number of passengers. So cost is going to increase, but I'm very glad that Mr. Taneja has given one very great idea, that is about indirect tourism benefits. Because if you don't look at the direct benefits of tourism, indirect benefits are bigger, larger, and will have more social as well as economic implications. So I will take this idea forward and I will discuss with my colleagues in the government as well, because this appears to be a very, very novel idea. Because I have worked on tourism, but I had no, I did not think in that line. So this is a great idea. But
I'm
what
preparing a paper on that also, sir. I'll share it with you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So now coming back to the point, main issues, see, here is a dilemma. Dilemma is that government's revenues are declining and expenditure is expected to be very, very high. So how we are going to manage it? There is a difference between the two words. One is relief package and the other is stimulus package. Whatever the government of India has right now done, or even the state governments, they have worked only in regard to mostly relief measures, relief packages. Because in the midst of COVID-19, when there is a crisis, in the midst of crisis, you cannot have a stimulus package for the industries because it will go waste. You have not opened your economy. Things are not moving. So what is very important is right now we are focusing on the relief measures so that our poor people, vulnerable section of the society can withstand the pressure of this crisis. Once our lockdown period is over, when the economy is open, then we will be thinking of the stimulus package. But I will tell you very frankly and very openly that this government for the last 2 months has been brainstorming, and we have been part of those brainstorming sessions where we have thought of every nitty-gritty about the stimulus package. There was a discussion about the US package, which the US government had offered in 2008 and 9 during the economic crisis. Can we copy that? Can we do something? Because there in the US, as you might be knowing, they just bought shares of the companies which were not doing that well, but they were expected to be doing well if there was some liquidity available with them. So that is also one idea. The second is, and I'm very happy that Mr. Taneja has given a lot of focus on MSME. So MSME is really a very, very vulnerable segment of our total industry. And as far as employment is concerned, it generates a huge amount of employment. So looking at this picture, government is ready to offer any kind of help to the MSME. But beyond MSME also, we have to look at many other industries. Look at the transport sector, how this transport sector is going to come back. That is also one major challenge. So my understanding is that government of India is looking at all the possibilities, all the probabilities, and all the options available before them. And they will be doing their best to give strength to the industry. One thing is good, that agriculture has not suffered, because agriculture activity has been going on and they have been allowed. But the only problem is that agriculture also depends on our large value chain system. So something is happening in the village, but something is not happening in the urban area, can disrupt your value chain. So this value chain has to be reestablished, has to be reconnected. In the larger perspective, the world value chain system has also got disrupted. There is a feeling that China may not be in the same position as it has been 2 or 3 months back. I heard Mrs. Nisha Desai Biswal, she is the president of India-US Business Council. She said that across the world now people are pondering over one issue, that we should not over depend on China, or at least we should de-risk this China connectivity. So there is a silver lining and an opportunity for India, that maybe if we are in a position to attract businesses from other parts of the world, that will give stimulant to or boost to our system. So these are the main points I wanted to discuss. But right now, largely our aim is to minimize the damage or minimize the hit which we already had to the economy. So yeah, so these are the points I had noted for further discussion, and thank you.
Sir, unmute.
आपका म्यूट है इमरान साहब.
Well, the generation gap. After all, I'm Tauji of the panel. So it does take some time to really recollect that I've started speaking and I'm not audible. Thank you, sir. Anyway, thanks a lot, sir. Looking at the possibilities and looking at the government initiatives and deliberations, I'm really comforted somewhat that the government is trying its level best. But I personally strongly feel that something which is more important is somewhere addressing the possibility of affecting the aggregate demand in the economy, which I think, better care of MSMEs is likely to put in, because that is one sector which is more associated with the employment aspect. And I personally believe that the economy is not driven, in the first place, is not driven by the money. It is basically driven by the confidence. If the people, if the citizens of the nation have confidence into the economy and the system and the prospects, near future prospects, then I think aggregate demand is likely to increase. And therefore, but of course, here the supply is also an issue. Right now, I think there is a fall across the world in the aggregate demand, and thus the possibility of reduced exports. And I think the recent data of last month and the before last month have recorded a very significant fall in the exports. All the sectors of the economy have recorded almost a negative growth, except the coal sector in the month of March. But in April, even coal sector has started recording a negative growth. So I think largely all the sectors are in negative, and which is almost expected and obvious because of this COVID-19. But we have to really take a lead from the fact that gradually we have to build up, and to build the confidence. It is not, it is, in the first place, I'll say that it is the food security. Then in the second place, it is about the cottage and the small industry, which is job oriented, which is employment oriented, need to be addressed first, I believe. This is my observation. Maybe Shailendra sir would comment on this better. But I personally feel that unless employment is created, unless the marginalized section of the society is put into that confidence loop, then perhaps the economy is not going to get into the revival stage. Because building up with the things, if the transportation is allowed, even then I feel if there are no people to really move on and go to the different parts of the country, there is little meaning. The vehicles would start moving, but there will be no travelers. So I strongly feel, and I feel that if the government look out at this aspect of building up the confidence and helping out the sectors which are more employment oriented, could be a little more pragmatic. Sir, Anil sir, you have some observations to make?
Yeah, definitely, sir. You are absolutely right. And I think Shailendraji has shared the same views. MSME is important, and the sectors which are more employment-oriented sectors like agriculture sector, tourism sector, service sector, they need to be focused on. And you know, if you talk about academic uh, academia contribution to this situation, I think this is a good beginning for Barul Islam has Sahab has said, that is a new experience that academia is taking into consideration for dissipation of the knowledge without the constraints of physical presence, without with the reduced time frame. That will be very excellent thing for academia to connect with industry, because time is a big constraint. Physical presence is a big constraint for bonding between academia and industry. That is one thing. Apart from that, I would urge in academia to take this opportunity to draw subjects of research from the present situation. Like I shared for the direct and indirect tourism scenario, how Switzerland is doing it, how government can be given, a kind of a research-based representation, as to exchequer will not actually end up with losses. Rather, it will end up with the overall holistic profitability for whole of the economy, if this kind of scenario is given to the government to implement upon. So academia plays an important role if it is doing kind of research work, the kind of diligent uh, thought process with the help of the industry, to help the industry and the government to take decisions of this kind.
Sir, we have a small question from the public that perhaps the country at the moment need to plan big, and the likelihood is that the revenues are likely to fall, the expenditures are likely to increase, and the position of the debt with the government is already high. So how do we see to plan this in terms of this gap of resources as vis-a-vis expenditure? Shailendra sir.
That is what I touched upon, that this
Yes,
is
sir.
a dilemma. But there is a way out. The way out is that initially you will have to, you should not be thinking in terms of high revenue generation. Because what Mr. Taneja has said, that indirect benefit. So I will take it as a larger issue. So you don't have to mint money for now. You can manage. And one thing I will share with you, that for the last 2 months, government has saved also a lot of money. Because the amount of money it used to spend on electricity, transportation, etc., huge saving on that account. So it is not that government has spent huge amount of money on their own. So there could be a possibility that in the initial period there will be less of revenue generation, and more of expenditure. But expenditure also will not happen in one day. There will be staggered expenditure. So staggered expenditure and staggered revenue generation, and somehow this has to match. So we are right now not worrying too much about the debt. We have to take our economy out of this crisis. And for that, whatever is possible, we have to do. What you were saying, Professor Salim, a few minutes back about the handicraft segment and other employment generating section. I think when we are talking of MSME, in the larger context, those segments are also part of that. But there could be two sets of handicraft business. One may be organized, part of organized. One may not be recognized or organized or in a sense registered. So, but we have to take care of those unorganized sectors as well. Because unless we do that, huge number of employment will be hit badly.
I would like to, Professor, I would like to add something here.
Sure, please.
In the light of all the discussion made by our experts, I also have a feel that there is an urgent need to take immediate steps to not only contain the spread of the virus, but also to address the key pain areas of the industry, which can help in minimizing the impact of the outbreak on the Indian economy and businesses also at the same time. You know, here I feel that a combination of the monetary, fiscal, and financial markets measures are needed to help the businesses and people to cope with the crisis. Therefore, to be able to frame correct actions and policy measures, it is important to understand clearly the specific problems that people and businesses are facing currently. This alone, can enable the government to take appropriate measures. In the Indian government, Reserve Bank of India need to support Indian industry and economy. At the same time, when you see the pains of the people who are on the roads, these are really miserable. They're crying because they are not able to reach to their homes on the one hand, and they are being beaten badly by the policeman. So as a whole, we are observing a typical type of environment at this moment.
I agree with you. Because, we are such a, there is one issue here that somebody is writing also on chat that whether we should be following herd immunity system. If you look at the entire world, there are two types of countries. One is which has done lockdown sort of things like us. One is following herd immunity. But those herd immunity systems, their people are far more educated, their health system is far more advanced. And when we are talking of public health, that is a very, very different system from medical services, hospitals. Public health means taking care of the entire population's health. And that is not just medical science. This is more about social and lifestyle measures. What we see in Japan, what we see in Taiwan. Taiwan is a very small country, but I don't know why this is not being discussed. Taiwan doesn't have, it has not a single death, and it has only a few patients. So how Taiwan has managed, how Japan has managed, how Thailand is managing. Entire Southeast Asia, I will say that the number of cases are too low. So here, what you are pointing out towards those labor, the thing is, we have not educated them too much, and we don't know how to handle that. This is not a crisis for which we had rehearsed too well, and we had rehearsed too long. So it's a sudden crisis, sudden thing has happened, and it's now we have to address that. I only hope that after 17, things will improve, as we may not prolong this lockdown too much, so that those laborers get their employment opportunities wherever they are. The moment they start working, things will improve. So that's my only hope.
So the only thing that I'm looking for is going to improve is the population.
Going to?
increase the population, because people are at home, and every time we are listening that the population will go up by 2.74 crores.
No, I
Well,
saw that report. Yeah, you are very right. I saw the report, but I will tell you, educated society will have not, they will not go for too much of rise in population. Educated people I am talking. And if you leave aside those people, then the number will be lower than what you think will be a large number. So I don't think this is a very, very big issue right now.
So, thank you, sir. Before we close, I would invite other panelists, Bahar Saab, if you want to make some observation, because we are running short of time almost.
बाहर साहब का माइक बंद है.
Thank you very much. Maybe concluding.
I think some connectivity issue. We can come back to Bahar Saab. Anil Saab, you have to say something before we close.
I think Shailendra ji would like to listen more from the conclusion.
And the next worry which I am looking at is in the revenue. If the program is online, then obviously our course fee will be lower. If course fee is lower, then our annual income becomes lesser. So we have to find out, as Shailendra ji was saying, that how we manage the cost. Obviously, the offering cost of the program will go lower because of cutting on the traveling time, teachers traveling arrangement, etc. But at the same time, our technology operational cost will be higher in coming days. Looking at what I'm not much worried about the IIMs because ultimately we'll get our students from the CAT exam, which had happened almost 3 months back. But overall, the whole higher education system, which are predominantly government supported, have to think about a different revenue model. Very soon, I'm looking at mainstream universities getting hit by some kind of reduction or something like that. But at the same time, it is also an opportunity to look at what kind of new business model we can bring in, what kind of class. For example, MBA, now we are getting into, from this year, we are getting into MBA analytics. So analytics, finance, HR, these kind of new domain areas, disaster management, which will be very, very upcoming. Now, these are the areas where people need specialization, quick specialization, 3-month certificates to 1 year certificate to 2-year diploma, online, giving very relevant industry input. Industry experts will be more teaching practical aspects of those programs. So this is what we are looking into. Not only the whole teaching paradigm change, but even the business model of offering programs in universities, and who will buy those programs. Ultimately, we have to give service. Somebody is paying money for this. So that is where my thoughts are now being pointed.
Thank you, sir. I had been longing that this could have continued a little longer, but we are almost finished in terms of time. On behalf of the Honorable Vice Chancellor and on behalf of the Faculty of Commerce, Department of Commerce, I thank you all the panelists. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.